situation. We're on the verge of destruction and annihilation, actually. We have within our, well, some of us are just coming from what we call Kamiran. We have a few places, not so many, but we have some places in India and in other countries as well, where, in keeping with Srila Prabhupada's instructions to revive this more simple way of living. So there's a need actually for all devotees to go to villages, because villages are, in the context of Vedic culture, villages are the foundation actually for the Vedic culture, because it's only in the villages that we can interact with cows. It's only in the villages that we can actually grow food on a scale that will, feed all of humanity. Srila Prabhupada and other Vaishnavacharyas, and then maybe I'll just finish on this point and we can take a few minutes for some possible comments or questions. Of course, Prabhupada made many important statements. One of them was that modern day civilization, in line with very heavy statements like killing civilization, modern day civilization, Prabhupada says, is a doomed civilization. That's a heavy word. Doomed civilization. Why? Because it's based on unsustainable concepts and principles. So to continue, I'm paraphrasing, modern day society is a doomed civilization, and therefore there's a need for a complete overhaul within society and the need to revert to the system of Varna and Asrama. Varna having to do with what is meant to be the more simple, more scientific ways in which we live and meet our different necessities of life. Sarva Kama Dugamahi, as mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Sarva Kama, all of our material necessities of life, they come from Mahi. They come from the land. They don't come from the factory. So therefore, it is very important for devotees to understand this aspect. This is, Prabhupada refers to Varnashrama Dharma, and he mentioned this 50 years ago, and it's still relevant today, as 50% of his unfulfilled mission. And Srila Prabhupada outlined in a small book yet to be published, it's an essay actually. How many have heard about Gita Nagari essay? Very good. But also very bad. The majority don't. Very important essay that was published in 1956 in Back to Godhead magazine. It's in the folio, the database. You can read it. And Srila Prabhupada very systematically presents 4 phases. I'll finish on this point actually. 4 is very important. Try to follow these 4 phases. Prabhupada called them movements for spreading, Hare Krishna, for spreading the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so this is way back in 56, and it is substantiated actually by a letter, a very important letter that Prabhupada wrote to the then Deputy Minister, Dr. Patel, in 1949. So that means 7 years before. So that means 17 years before going to America, Prabhupada had that vision. And so when he went to America, he just started to introduce it. So Prabhupada explains that the first phase, or the first movement, begins with chanting the holy name. Chanting the holy name and distributing transcendental literatures, so that those who hear the holy name, come in contact with devotees, they can start reading and begin to understand something. Second phase, Prabhupada refers to as temple worship movement. These are words that Prabhupada himself has chosen. Temple worship movement, establishing places, centers, temples, where those who are curious or interested in spiritual life or want to know more, they can have a place to come. They can actually be introduced to the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord Krishna. Third phase, third movement, Prabhupada called it spiritual initiation movement. Spiritual initiation movement refers to what we know today as congregational preaching. Training those individuals who are more serious in becoming committed to what is meant to be the primary goal and purpose of life, which is self-realization. That doesn't mean we negate material things, but it means we show respect to all living entities and we minimize our material necessities of life. Otherwise, we become overly entangled materially and we forget the actual goal of life. So, spiritual initiation movement. The fourth movement, actually, the first three, before I tell you the fourth one, the first three is what even up to now we see and we have seen mostly happening within our ISKCON temples and mostly in the cities. The fourth one is the title itself that Prabhupada has given, initially is a little difficult. Prabhupada calls it Classless Society Movement. And by classless society, Srila Prabhupada does refer to the 4 varnas and the 4 ashramas, but he dares to call it classless society. Why? Because all the individuals who are serving in whatever different material or spiritual position, they all have the same focus. They have the same purpose, to practice devotional service, to live together as one united family, spiritual family, and to help one another advance towards what is meant to be the primary goal of life. And I'll just, in that essay, Gitanagari, wonderful, Prabhupada is constantly coming up with, in so many different purports in his books, wonderful expressions and presenting things very, very clearly, very nicely. So he mentions how, in order for us to establish universal brotherhood, which is what the United Nations and so many other organizations are trying to do, in order to succeed in establishing universal brotherhood in the world, there are 3 simple things that we need to understand. And he coins them as follows. We should try to understand deeply the meaning of that. He calls it the fatherhood of Godhead. Secondly, the motherhood of nature. Krishna, God, is the Supreme Father of all living entities. Mother Nature is supplying all of our necessities of life. And the third concept, the childhood of all living entities. We're all dependent, like in a family, on mother and father, isn't it? If we can develop this mood and this mentality, first of all, within ourselves, and if we can try to convey that, introduce that to others, regardless of their spiritual belief, regardless of whatever their material condition may be, it can help us to understand better how we should deal with one another, how we should deal with material nature, and what is ultimately the primary goal and objective of life. So we cannot so easily understand about the spiritual dimension unless we also gain a proper understanding of the material dimension of life as well, because both are interconnected, and we are the living proof of that. We are within the body is a soul. We have this body, so we are dealing constantly with matter and spirit. Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, especially teach us what is the best way to deal with both spirit and matter. I will close here, and we can open up for whatever time may be there for any possible whatever comments or questions. Yeah. And don't be shy.
It's like in Kali Yuga, things will be quite badly destroyed, but then after that we hear Sati Yuga comes, right? So the living entities in Kali Yuga do all kinds of, like the way they are doing now, and everything gets so badly spoiled, and how suddenly in Sati Yuga, the next Yuga, things becomes so perfect actually. So how does that transition happen?
Well, that won't happen for a long time, right? We are now in the beginning of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga began 5,000 years ago. In the Shastra, I mean, how can we understand things? Where do we get our knowledge? According to Shastra, we get proper knowledge, we get perfect knowledge from Shastra. So in the Shastra, it mentions how, although this is Kali Yuga, in the beginning of Kali Yuga, 5,000 out of 432,000 years, Kali Yuga is going to last 432,000 years minus 5. We have entered, that is, there's a prediction that due to the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at a certain period, which was actually 500 years ago, there is an opportunity for bringing or manifesting a Satya Yuga within the age of Kali. And that is ongoing right now, but still in this very beginning stage. So if I understand your question, how is it that after Kali Yuga will finish, I suppose is what you're referring to, all of a sudden Satya Yuga will come?
This will destroy everything, all the species, all the land, like it really, like people are pushing in that direction, and then how suddenly things become so.
Yes. Not completely everything. Majority of destruction will be there, that's one thing. Also, we need to understand, because that's also explained in the Shastra, that we as, we speak of mankind, humanity. Mankind is connected with Manu. Manu, there is connection with other living